and welcome to a special edition of the Admissions Podcast. My name is Whitney Kessner, and I am sitting in today for host Brett Twitty, and I'm joined by my admissions colleague, Katie Yielding. Hi, Katie.
Hi, Whitney. Thanks for having me on the podcast today.
Always a pleasure. All right, so with this application series, we've been looking at different components of the overall application. And so today's podcast is going to focus on recommendations, the part of your application that is not coming from you, so coming from someone who knows you well. And so we're going to dive in and talk about some of the things to keep in mind. So to begin with, Katie, who makes a good recommender?
Thanks, Whitney. So at Darden, we require one letter of recommendation. You can submit up to two, but usually one is very sufficient. And because we're just asking for one, we find that the best choice is usually your current supervisor. If that person is available to be a voice for you in this process, we find that that can be the best choice. Or if not, a more recent past supervisor can be somebody to turn to as well. We recognize that people have lots of different circumstances depending on their working atmosphere that may mean they need to go to another source. And especially if you're an entrepreneur or a business owner, you may be thinking about alternative options as well, and that is perfectly acceptable. If you choose not to go with someone who's been a current or recent past supervisor, it might be a helpful thing to let us know why within those additional comments in the application too.
Thank you, Katie. Yes, just underscoring that we want to hear from people who know you really well. A recommender can be a champion for you in this application process. And so the more that they can help us understand through examples and talking about, how you've performed on a day-to-day basis is so valuable to us. So really important to be thoughtful and strategic. All right, you're thinking about who's going to be a good recommendation writer. How do you, any tips, any thoughts around setting that person up to be successful in this process?
Absolutely. Hopefully, this is somebody who has spent that time investing in your professional development. They know you well, they've seen your growth, and they want to be a champion for your next steps too. And so the way you best do that is you talk to them about it. You give them time and warning that you've got this coming up. And so I always recommend take that potential recommender for lunch, for coffee. Find a time that they may be available to have a longer conversation where you can bring up what your future plans are and ask as a question, would you be willing to be my recommender? You want somebody who's going to enthusiastically say, yes, I would really like to support you in that way. You can tangibly help them by providing an updated version of your resume, by talking to them about your interest in Darden, why you want to go to school here, what your hopes are for your next professional steps, where you want to go next. That way, when they are filling out that recommendation form, they're going to have all of that really top of mind. I'd also give them, like I said, plenty of warning and maybe give them a slightly earlier deadline so that you have time to send a reminder as we get closer and make sure that that element of your application has been submitted prior to that deadline.
Great. Thank you, Katie. All right. We're both members of the admissions committee, so we both are reading many, many applications every cycle. How does the recommendation work within our overall application review?
Yeah, so you referenced earlier that our recommenders are that outside voice. They help you share more about what that applicant's experience has been within their workplace, within their areas of influence, and what their growth has been like. And so when we're reviewing an application, it's really exciting for us to see and hear directly from those voices of, wow, here's some of the strengths of the application that we've seen, and then we see those reflected in the recommendation too. Or, oftentimes an applicant calls out, here's an area where I'm really hoping to grow at Darden and have an opportunity to study and learn more. And the recommender may also, say the same things. Here are the reasons they're coming to business school is because I see the potential for them to grow in these ways. They can really be that kind of check that both the application and other submitted materials kind of help tell that story on where else can this person contribute? Where can they grow? And what type of participant are they going to be in a Darden classroom? Having that outside voice is really, really helpful in the process. And so we take those really seriously. We love to know and learn about how what type of contributor you've been in your workplaces, and as an indicator of what type of contributor you may be on your teams and your future employers after Darden.
So very valuable for sure. A really important part of your overall application. So, well, in closing, Katie, any additional tips that you have for candidates as they're thinking about this recommendation, the process, anything along those lines?
Well, once you ask for that recommendation and then your recommender submits it, follow up with them. Let them know that you've pressed submit on your application. Keep them up to date when you get that interview invitation. And then when you get admitted to Darden, let them celebrate all the next steps that come along in the process. They have invested time in you, both professionally and through your MBA application. Allow them the celebration parts of that as well. So a nice thank you letter at the end, a nice way to include them in all the exciting next parts of your story. Be sure that they get to enjoy those elements as well.
That's a fantastic tip, Katie. And yeah, in closing, an important part of your application is this recommendation. So being thoughtful in who you choose, making sure you're giving them plenty of time, being very clear about those deadlines, and then showing your gratitude and inviting them to be a part of your process. And as you shared, hopefully be at that moment of celebrating when you're admitted and being able to really sort of see that full cycle as a part of the process. So this has been wonderful, Katie. Thank you so much for your recommendation tips and joining me on the podcast today.
It's a pleasure to join the podcast. Thanks for having me.